We'll go ahead and start screen sharing and we can begin. Alrighty guys, welcome to the first CRM webinar masterclass. For you that don't know me, my name is Patrik Potts. I am the CTO and onboarding and training manager over at NetScore. And today I was going to be showing you guys how to do a little bit more of the SMS and email template creation process, how to organize data in your contacts and more fully utilizing that, as well as how to implement some of these snippets into a workflow or automation. So to start off, when you get logged into your NetScore CRM, we navigate to the Conversations tab. Okay. The Conversations tab is a very powerful messaging application, right? You can send SMS, WhatsApp, email, if there's an email address. You can send Facebook message or Instagram messenger. You can reply to all of these channels in one place. So what do we like to do? We like to speed things up, right? Make things easier for ourselves. So in that response process, we can set up a snippet. Okay. So if I come to Conversations tab and come to Snippets up here at the top, here is where you can make all of your templates. You can use these not only in a regular conversation, you can add these to workflows and you can set up drip campaigns with these. So when I'm building a automation out, I like to add them in snippets. First thing I'll do is come to a folder and I want to add a folder. That way, if I have a campaign or an idea, I can make sure that all of them are in one spot. So for instance, let's say this is a grand opening. Okay, so we're going to make a workflow for a grand opening. Here is the folder. I can just go ahead and click it, and then we'll add a snippet. Now, inside of snippets, when you're sending a text and an email, some of the things you need to keep in mind. Text messages are a little more expensive and they are hard to send links in. So if you have a link in a text message, it can affect that deliverability. Certain phone carrier companies like AT&T or Verizon really don't like links. So we found to be very effective is to put all of your links in an email and then direct people to check their email inside of that text. Okay. So first, we will set up an email snippet. This will be our grand opening. Okay. So this will be I like to have draft in my email snippets until I get them built out. That way I don't accidentally send something I'm not ready to. Here, we're going to add a subject. Fun fact for anybody on PC, if you hold the Windows key and press period, it'll pull up the emojis. So let's do an opening. Let's look for an emoji that would work for us. Let's type in celebration. Okay. Now that we've added in a subject line, here is where the meat and potatoes of the snippet is. Okay. So for every email, I like to start off with a greeting, hi, and to make it so their name autofills, we come to custom values. These custom values are going to be your best friend when you're setting up templates, automations, whatever, what have you. Contact has all of the contacts information, as well as any custom fields you may have for them, right? a question in a form that you've set up, a question on your marketing or advertising. If that is linked as a custom field, you can automatically put that in here. So for now, let's do contact first name. Okay. Welcome to our grand. Let's do it this way. Thank you for grand opening. We look forward to seeing you. Okay, so now that we've built out the greeting, we might want to include a link to a website. Here, we can embed a link. So that's this little button right here. We can add a link. URL would be something like and then the text to display is what shows over. So if you wanted to have register here, and then this action window is where do you want this link to open? If it's the same window, it'll close out their email, or if you do new window, it'll open up here in a separate tab. So I like to do new window. Okay, and then we click save. And now we have a hyperlink that instead of having a URL, it has instructions. These I like to put click here to learn more or register now. This is your call to action. So we can put that here. Then these other options are for formatting. So if I wanted to do copy that, I can do a strike through. Okay. If I wanted to do superscript or subscripts, you guys know what those are. And for people who can code, these code blocks and inline code blocks are very useful. Now, to add an image, we have to do a little bit extra. Okay. So let's say we wanted to add an image. Let's click Add Image. And here you'll see it says image URL and all of this other information. Now, where do you get that image URL? You can either upload it from your computer, or let's save this here in your media storage. Okay. So in your media storage tab, we upload a couple of images. And for instance, let me grab this one, this healthy one. You can click, grab copy link. Let's go back to conversations and snippets. Let's go to our folder. And then we come back to our grand opening email. Now we can add image, add that URL. Let's do a width of 250 and 250. Alternate text is what happens when somebody who maybe has a vision impairment or really any kind of disability, alt text is going to read out whatever you put here. So this would be image of a smiling person. Here is where you can post something to that image. For instance, if you had two images, the healthy one and the unhealthy one, you can have a link to your calendar here and then have something else over on the unhealthy side. So we're not going to post any link here just yet. So now we can see that that image has been added. And then let's add an attachment. Same as before, you click add attachment and it pulls something up here. This is going to be your desktop browser. You guys know how to look through files. And then before I finalize it, I'm going to send a test to myself. Okay. This allows me to see what it looks like on mobile. And by sending a test, I'm able to check and see what it looks like on my computer. let's go ahead and save this. Now we have an email. Let's create a text. This is going to be grand text 1. Call it draft. Hi. Custom value, contact and first name. Right. Think now here for please check your email, they might have multiple emails and they might not remember which one they signed up for. So what you can do is please check your email, custom value email, and you can add that here. Please check your email for next steps. Below that, you can see the cost of this message, the characters, words, and segments. This cost is the base amount, the rebilling amount on Twilio. A segment is 160 characters. So until we hit 160, this counts as one segment. Something to keep in mind here is adding an emoji immediately jumps those segments up. So you can see 136 characters. Have not really changed much, but that segment count goes up, so that price goes up. Okay. Then if we want to add a file, we can do that here. And you can add attachments and then send a test snippet to yourself. So this would be a good opening text. Okay. So now not only do we have a email, but we also have a text. So now let's look at using those text messages in an automation. So let's go back here to automations. I'm going to create a folder. Let's call it grand opening. Just like before, we want to make sure that we have a folder so we can find stuff and have it easily organized. Let's start by creating a workflow, and let's do it from scratch. Let's go ahead. Save this. Here for this trigger, depending on what you're doing for an event or a campaign, you can add a trigger. For instance, a popular one is a form being submitted. You can also skip out on a trigger and manually add groups to this automation. That way they don't accidentally get added to this. You would have to maybe send a list to them. So for an action, let's send an SMS. Instead of typing up all of those messages we talked about here in the automation, we can use that template. So, grand opening text. Here, it'll show you what we built out. You can't make changes to this. However, updating this template will dynamically update the automation. That way, instead of having to dig around inside of automations, you can just look for your templates if you ever need to make changes. And let's save that action. Here we're going to email. We will use that same corresponding email template. Okay. And then click Save Action. Now, if you have a longer drip campaign or chain, I always make sure to name these actions That way we can specify later on when we're trying to do responses or if-then statements. For instance, we'll put a wait timer after both of these messages send. Instead of waiting for a time delay, we're actually going to wait for contact replied, trigger link clicked, email event. These are some of the different options I would choose. First and foremost, for each text, I would say wait for contact reply. If you have a registration link tied to your grand opening, I would have this trigger link or email event be the option. Okay, so let's say contact replied to grand opening text. We'll set a timeout. This is how long before it moves that person to the next step without them replying. I will typically put 1 day. So you'll send a message and then wait for a response. This is when the contact replies, and this is what happens if they don't reply. So let's go back to the contact replied. Here we can put an if-else statement and create a branch. If they don't respond, right, the step contact replied is false, right? It has a branch here. We could set it to true. If they don't respond in that day or it times out, you can send them a follow-up that you've crafted. And if they do respond, you can do something like tag them with a hot lead, right? Letting you know that they responded, that there's someone who showed interest. You can set up a notification, email, SMS, or a browser notification. Here we would send a notification to ourselves. So I'm going to say custom value, contact first name, actually contact full name is going to be the subject line, just responded. That way when we see our email come through, we can immediately get that information. Hi, team. Response to. And for these notifications, I like to make it so I don't have to come back to the CRM right away, right? In case I'm out of office, I'm at lunch, I can see all of that information in the email. So what I'd like to do is name and then add contact full name. I'll do phone, contact phone, email, contact email. And then this one is a little bit hidden. So what they said. And then in custom values, I type in body and it'll pull up message body. So in this email, it will actually include what they replied with in that text message. So this is a pretty good way just to have all that information in one spot. And you're not punished by how long your emails are. So you could put as much in here as you want. So then we save that action. Okay. And then we go back. Here it's drafted. We would just click publish. Okay. Next, we want to use all of that data, right? We had those people registering. You might have added some pre-qualifying questions or just some basic Q&A kind of stuff. So what can we do with that information? Well, we can organize it in their contact card, as well as create some smart list tasks and things like that. So let's create a contact. We test.com. Okay. So here would be someone's contact information. Okay. Clicking on their contact, you have all of their information over on the side, like these fields. Contact, general, and additional are typically standardized options. You can add these in settings and custom values. But here we have tags, and here under that we have automations and opportunities. So something that is very important whenever you are getting busier and busier is an easy way to organize your data. Tags are a very, very powerful tool for that. For instance, you might want to put the day they come into your office or school, anything like that. You might want to put if they're in person or online, right? You might want to say they came from a Facebook form or a website form, right? These tags can be added in automations. They can be added manually, but these are very, very useful. Going back to that automation I mentioned, how you can manually add people. This is how you do that. If I wanted to, I could click add and I type in grand opening. Oh, I may not have saved it as that. But you can add them to those workflows. Over on the right, we have tasks, which are pretty useful. Notes, appointments, documents, and payments. So those are all things that we can cover in another webinar. For now, let's go back to the main contact page. So here we see the tags that we added earlier. And these are the default columns. If I want to, I can organize and view data based on any of those fields that we had filled out. This goes back to those custom values. Okay. So for instance, let's say marketing budget. They might have one. Okay. If this marketing budget is over a certain amount or under a certain amount, we could filter by that. Okay. And the way we do that is here in the filters section. So when I click the filters section, not only do they have these standardized lists, but you can, again, filter by those custom values, right? That's why it's so important to have qualifying questions on intake forms, on your Facebook advertising forms, right? All of that data can be pulled in. So for instance, let's say I want to filter by people who come in on Mondays. I know that I added the tag Monday, so I can say tag is Monday. I click apply. We can see this person. Then for filters, maybe I want someone who comes in on Mondays, again, into the office. So tag is, let's see, in person. So now we're organizing tag is Monday and in person. So this would only be people who come in on Mondays. If I wanted to do any of those other combinations, you can do and or. So let's do that again. Current client or tag is current clients. or okay. And then we save that as a smart list. I just saved it. And now up here at the top left, you have your all contacts. This is an old smart list. And then this current smart list. If you want to see what it is, you can click filters and see that here. Okay. Now, managing your smart lists. This is for people who might have a bigger clinic or school, office, whatever, and they have a lot of users. Some users may not want to see all of the current patients or former students, right? You may not want to share that information with some people. So here you can edit who can and cannot see your different lists. Okay. This is very useful. Again, like I said, if you have a very large office staff and you kind of want to compartmentalize some of this data. Okay. Now let's go over to the drip campaigns, right? Probably the thing that everybody here is excited for. So here I have 2 contacts. So if I had a list of 100 people, clicking here would select them all. If the list goes longer than 1 page, right, that's typically more than 50 or 100 people, there will be the option right here that says, would you like to select all people? This button by default selects just the page. A second button pops up that would select all of them. Now, we're going to send an SMS or email all at once. You can also do pipeline changes or add to automations. But for now, we'll do send email. Okay. This is known as a bulk action. We want to put a descriptive name in this bulk action. So this would be grand opening email. I'm going to select a template from earlier that we had, and it'll fill it out just like you did earlier, right? We'll give it a from name, from email, and then the most important thing you can do when sending these bulk emails is send in drip mode. If you do not send an email or a text campaign in drip mode, it can severely damage your reputation, right? Not just to the public, but to Google or Verizon, your different carriers. Sending in drip mode is so important, guys, right? Start day and time. You can choose whenever, if you want to schedule this ahead of time, maybe you have a Valentine's Day kind of offer or deal, Christmas, summer specials. You can craft them up while you have the idea and then schedule that day later on. And then we get to batch quantity and how often you repeat. This is one of the things that ties into drip mode. Okay. Depending on who your domain carrier is, and depending on which platform you're on for that, it dictates the absolute max amount of emails and text messages you can send in a day while still not being marked as spam. Typically, the floor of that is about 300 emails or texts, or specifically emails in one day. So if you have a bigger campaign and you've been in business for a while, you can up that amount just because you have a verified domain and you're sending good emails, right? So the more you send and the longer you're sending these emails, the more you could send at once. Batch quantity to start off, I do 50 for 1 hour, every hour. Okay, so this will send 50 emails per hour between these designated times. If it's your first email campaign, you set it for maybe only 6 hours per day. So let's say we start at 1 p.m. and we run till 7 p.m. Okay, this is 6 hours of sending messages. That'll be here 300 emails in one day. I click confirm. And this would more or less cover all of the basics here in drip mode. Okay. If you want to send more, again, I highly suggest a warm-up campaign. Compile a list of people who you know open emails, right? You don't want to send 100 emails to 99 inboxes that don't open it. That can also damage your reputation. So what does that mean and how do we solve that issue? After you've sent a campaign, what you're going to want to do is look at the bulk actions. Okay. Here you would be able to see the stats of that email campaign, all of them, successes, errors. For emails specifically, it also says bounce rate, do not disturb, unsubscribed, all of those things. You want to stay on top of that, right? Another place you can view that is here in marketing. We can look at emails and then campaigns. So workflow campaigns can be when you have somebody in a large bulk email. This is the bulk action campaign, the one I just showed you. Right? And then you can see those statistics. So it's super important to look at all of this as your emails go through, right? You want to look at open rate, email numbers, right? Delivery rate, open rate, click rate. Those are super important. If something has a low click rate or open rate, you typically want to boost that subject line, right? Bring people in, draw people in, making an offer in the subject line, right? If you have a high open rate and a low click rate, that means you might not have a button in a good enough place. You don't have that call to action at the top of your email, okay? And then if the sales aren't coming through, right? If you have a store page tied to those email campaigns, then maybe work on the offer or the wording, right? Let people know what you're offering. Okay. So all of that is so incredibly important for these campaigns, right? So now we've gone over creating those templates, right? We did snippets. We talked about setting up some of these filters in your contacts, right? Adding these filters in for smart lists. And then we talked about sending out those bulk drip sequences and how to actually do it in an automation as well. So that wraps up the first part of this webinar, kind of gone over everything in greater detail than onboarding. So now I want to open up the floor to any questions if you guys want to join in. I'm not seeing any questions, guys. Over on the right, you have the chat option. If you want to, just go ahead and send in any questions you might have. I'll give that about 5 minutes. And if there's no questions, we'll go ahead and end the call. Okay, guys, it looks like no one has really any questions. If you do, and you just don't know how to ask them here, feel free to reach out by email. Right? If you have any questions, we can go ahead and get those taken care of. I want to thank everybody for coming. This was great. We're going to offer these every other week, so twice a month. And you'll see more follow-ups. We're going to post this on YouTube. I look forward to doing more of these. You guys have a wonderful afternoon.